This video is going to be about the declining balance method of depreciation, sometimes called the double declining balance, due to the way it's figured out. So in this method, it's going to be a little bit different, and in most cases, well, almost all cases, the depreciation is much higher in the first few years than it is in the last few years. So we're going to see a huge drop in the book value for year 1 and year 2, as opposed to year 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it might be. So there's two equations that we're going to be using. The first one's going to be the depreciation expense per year is going to be the book value times the depreciation rate. Now the depreciation rate will vary depending on really just one thing, and that's how long the asset is expected to be used by the company. So the depreciation rate is always going to be 100% divided by the number of useful years times 2, and that's where that double declining balance term sometimes comes in. So 100% divided by the number of useful years times 2, that'll give us a rate, a percentage, that we can then multiply by the book value. So in this case, if we look at an example, the example in your notes was, it's actually the same example from the units of production, but it can be figured out with declining balance as well. So it was a $20,000 asset, a truck, and we don't really need to know the number of miles that it's driven, but we do need to know that it was 5 years for useful life and $1,000 for the salvage value. All right, so then if we go, and we're actually going to start with the depreciation rate. So if we figure that out, the depreciation rate is equal to 100% divided by, in this case, 5 years times 2. So 100% divided by 5 is 20%, times 2 is equal to 40%. And that is the rate at which this truck is going to lose value every year. Now this 40% is not 40% of the cost every year, it's going to be 40% of the book value is lost every year. So you have to figure out year 1 in order to figure out year 2. So let's take a look at, and then once we have this information, we're going to go to the depreciation expense per year, and that's going to be your book value, whatever that is, times 40%, but 40% is going to be written as a decimal, so 0.4. So let's take a look at this example in action. So if we have year 1, in this case, that cost then again is $20,000, and we're going to multiply that times 0.4. Now again, this is your book value for the first year because it's what the value is, right? So times that by 0.4, and we get $8,000. Now $8,000 represents the depreciation for the first year, which means that the book value is $12,000. So you take away the $8,000 from the $20,000 and you get $12,000. Now for year 2, we just continue that process, but we don't start with $20,000 because that's not our book value anymore. $12,000 is. So 12,000 times 0.4, and that gives us $4,800. Now if we take $4,800 away from this book value from the year before, we get our book value at the end of year 2, which is $7,200. Year 3 continues this process. We get $7,200, again the book value from the year before, times 0.4, and that gives us $2,880. Again, subtract that away from your book value, and you end up with $4,320. Now before we go any farther, you'll notice that in 3 years, this $20,000 truck has gone down to being only worth $4,320. That's a pretty significant drop. As we continue this, you'll notice though that our depreciation amount is getting less and less because it's 0.4 or 40% of a smaller amount every year. So for year 4, $4,320 times 0.4 gives us $1,728. which takes our book value down to $2,592. Now, this is where the double declining balance is different from the other methods, because nowhere in our equations up here did we factor in this salvage value of $1,000. What that means is that our book value after 5 years, because it's a 5-year depreciation, should be $1,000. Okay, now if we plug in $2,592 times 0.4, we do not get $1,000. So we need to kind of, in year 5 or the last year of the double declining balance, we always have to be careful with this and just say, all right, what is our difference between these 2 years? So our book value from the year before the last year to our salvage value, and if you look at that, if you took away $1,000, it'd be $1,592. So we're going to ignore this for year 5 and just say that it's our book value, $2,592, minus $1,000, which is our salvage. So we're basically finding the difference here, what we have to lose on the car or on the truck to get down to our salvage value. So that equals a salvage value of $1,592. And that is our depreciation for year 5. So be careful when you're doing declining balance depreciation. If it asks you for year 5, it's going to get a little, not year 5 always, but the last year, it's going to get a little tricky when you get down to that point. So just be careful with that.